We hear in today's second reading, "My son, do not disdain the discipline of the Lord, or lose heart when reproved by him. For whom the Lord loves, he disciplines. He scourges every son he acknowledges. Endure your trials as discipline. God treats you as sons." This word discipline, a lot of times certain connections between the words in the ancient languages don't necessarily transfer over into the English. This word discipline, fortunately, does retain its connection with that word that we hear in the Gospel so often, disciple. It is by discipline that we become disciples of Christ. Discipline, which we may think of as something negative. We actually, in the book of Wisdom, it says that though discipline seems like a cause for sorrow or suffering at the time, that when one grows older, they see that it is a cause for joy. And this is something where I learned self-control by the immediate cause and effect. When I do something I'm not supposed to do, something unpleasant happens. And yet, if I don't do something wrong, my life is relatively unburdensome, so to speak, less painful. You might even call it joyful. Just kind of generationally, we've kind of fallen away from a sense of discipline. I remember as a boy, there were a lot of news stories bringing up a lot of critics of what we'd call corporal discipline. Some were, I think, more severe than any of us would care to administer ourselves. If you go way back when, maybe 2 or 3 generations, it wasn't that long ago, where you could hear about people saying when they were caught red-handed, they had to do something, they had to be disciplined. Part of the discipline was go out, find a switch, meaning a branch off of a tree, so you had to choose your own device with which you were going to be whipped. And some of the seniors, which I would hear stories about this from, they had to be very crafty as a child, learn to use judgment in this. If it was too small and would break, you'd have to go and get another one. And you certainly didn't want to pick one that was too big and too hard. I'm not promoting that as a means of discipline. Just to give you a little historical context. So as a boy, I remember hearing news stories where there's movement against all corporal discipline, basically meaning to never do any affliction of any kind of physical suffering. I myself, I think, was the first-hand witness experiencing just simple, if I get something wrong, you get spanked as a little boy. And it really only took about once for us. That being said, there are other means as well. And I think just to, I don't want to get into the weeds too much with this. So we know that there is discipline. There's corporal discipline, but there's also other kinds. Standing in a corner, a certain humiliation that I have to face what I did wrong with boredom. And there's other means as well. But discipline begins to refine and constrict what we have in this life. If we may think of our life as water, without any banks, without any borders or limitations, the land on which the waters flow just kind of goes out into this blah. It becomes like a marsh, incapable of being consumed for life-giving water. But if that discipline is like the banks, suddenly that water becomes a life-giving river. And it becomes living and moving in itself. It has a channel and a direction and a final path on which it is directed. And it is also capable of sustaining other life. So those who are disciples of Christ should also have this discipline so that I myself may have this life and actually be able to lead others to that life as well. In this sense, perhaps we should listen to our Lord's image rather than my own. He answered, "Strive to enter through the narrow gate." This narrow gate implies a discipline. That in this life, in order to say yes to God or to anything that is genuinely good, I ultimately have to say no to 1,000 other things. We have a generation that either is taught that it's good to keep my options open, to always have another way to choose, or might even just be afraid of commitment. But if we consider the joy that a child has in playing different games, all of their options remain open. One day, the child plays doctor. Another day, perhaps there's playing priest or nun. Then the next day, playing some sort of hero or princess. All of these things remain open during play. And yet as we grow older, we begin to make renunciations that actually allow us to enter more deeply into joy. Because while perhaps a man might desire the good of marriage and may consider this woman or that woman to enter into a relationship with, he does not actually have that joy unless he says no to all others for the love of this one. Strive to enter through the narrow gate. So discipline is very important, and I think practically speaking, to know that discipline also makes this life more harmonious. As we carry the cross, we have difficulties, that with it also can come peace. So this next part is going to sound a little bit like an infomercial. That's okay. Because discipline has largely been lost in our generation, it doesn't mean that, in a lot of ways, perhaps no fault of our own. I want to make a practical recommendation. Those of you who have children, I hope you know that I will be the first to defend you if you get any ugly looks, any comments that seem to imply that you're not welcome here because your children make noise. They're a part of the church. They have every right to be here. And I will defend you and your children. Let the children come to me, our Lord says. So let them come. And let us also help our parents to form their children in discipline. Now, a little baby is not going to know right and wrong. They simply cry out for their mother or their father. As they get older, they begin to learn cause and effect very quickly. First, they're put in place with the constant love that the parents give them so that they know that they're loved. That's the first building block. What follows from that, knowing that their father and mother love them, that when they do something they know they shouldn't do, they have an effect called discipline. So, there is a program. It doesn't even involve corporal punishment, so it can be used by anyone. It's called 1, 2, 3 magic. 1, 2, 3 magic is what it's called. It teaches the parents discipline. And it teaches them how to discipline their children. If this is a struggle for you, 1, 2, 3 magic is something that I would just practically recommend as an option for you. If you know parents that struggle and exhaust themselves with their children not knowing how to discipline them, 1, 2, 3 magic would be a great gift to give them. Because it will establish peace in the home. From parents who have used it, within the day they begin to practice it, the children begin to respond and live a disciplined life. So aside from the peace and making a parent's life actually easier, remember the ultimate reason that we discipline our children, and even as priests, why sometimes we tell you not to do something is because Christ tells us today to strive to enter through the narrow gate. If he gives us this very severe warning today with this parable, Lord, open the door for us, at that point it's already too late. We want to be thinking ahead. We want to be disciplined so that we can follow the faith. So, with that said, let us continue with this Mass.